Hey everybody, it's Helen Hillix. I'm your host for From My Heart to Yours, and for my YouTube channel, Helen Hillix. I'm a licensed therapist, intuitive counselor, and I am here today with this really, what I hope is going to be a fun and informative topic for you guys. I think it's really fun for me to talk about, and that is how to make the most of the ebb and flow of love and romance. Wouldn't it be awesome if you could make the best of both parts of that process? We are not taught that, but what if you could? What if you could make the ebb part, the going away part, what if you could make that just as juicy and rewarding and exciting and enjoyable, pleasurable as the flow part? So that's what we're here to talk about today, is the 12 tools for loving both parts of that process. And I know you've all been through it. I've been through it many times, but I know you've all been through that, where you are really hot and heavy in the beginning, and then something seems to switch and you don't know what to do, and it makes you anxious and blah, blah, blah. So we're going to talk about this one step at a time. And stay with me, guys. And as always, I would love to get your feedback after you listen to this, after you watch this. I would love to get your feedback about whether it helped you and what your thoughts are. So let's talk about what we are taught about sex and love. Well, I know you're not any different than I am, in that what you're taught by our culture is that you must look a certain way. You must act a certain way. You must perform, in other words. That's what we're taught, is that I don't care if you're in the mood, you've got to be sexual for him. You got to please your man. And I don't care if you're in the mood, you've got to please your woman. We have this ingrained in us that we're not going to be loved if we don't make our partners have the most exciting experiences of their lives and the best orgasms and however much sex they want. And it's so much pressure, and it's the pressure to perform. It's not the pressure or the permission really to be yourself. It's the pressure to perform. And that's what we are all taught. And so when those natural periods of ebb and flow come, when it ebbs, we are terrified, because we are taught that sex and love are not together. They're separate things, and you should be having sex all the time. It doesn't matter how you feel. It does, and sex should always be white hot. It should be white hot sex all the time. We are not taught that, even in the flow parts, we are taught that there's a very limited range of sex and love that is the best. And the best is that white hot kind. So these are all things that we have been brainwashed to believe. That we've also been brainwashed to believe that men should always want sex, and that women should always be in the mood, and that women should never be initiating, that men should always be initiating. I could go on and on, but I've talked about this on other podcasts and videos about what our culture has taught us about sex, and how we can break free of some of those restrictions that the culture has put on us. And I don't want to spend this whole podcast talking about that. So suffice it to say that we are all made into objects, performance objects. And how does that affect our romantic feelings? How does that affect our feelings of our own lovability? How does that affect us when something happens, whatever it may be? And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the tools part, about how to make the ebb be just as wonderful as the flow. But for right now, what we're taught, when that ebb inevitably comes, and it always will come, won't it? You all know that intuitively, even if you have very little experience with romance and love. We all intuitively know that there are ebbs and flows in every single process of life. So it would just make sense that that's the case with love and romance and sexuality too. So what happens when that does inevitably come? Well, what do we think immediately? Oh my God, something's wrong. Isn't that right? Isn't that the first thing that you think? Oh, I noticed that we haven't had sex in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month or whatever. Something's wrong. Something's got to be wrong. And of course, what's the first thing we think? Usually is there's either something wrong with me. He's not attracted to me. She's not attracted to me. We either think there's something wrong with me, or you think, I wonder what's wrong with him. I wonder what's wrong with her. There's got to be something wrong. I wonder if they're cheating. I wonder if they're addicted to pornography. And that's, where they're getting off, not with me. It's like all these thoughts go through our minds. We jump to all these conclusions. We make all these assumptions that there's something wrong, right? So, maybe they don't love me anymore. Maybe this is the beginning of the end. Maybe they're not attracted to me anymore. What should we do? We should spice it up. I should get some sexy lingerie, or I should get a penis ring, hold my erection longer. I should do something. Something's got to be done. Something's got to be done. Let's get a different toy. Let's buy a different video. Let's try a different position or technique. And that's our mentality in our culture, is that it should look a certain way. And if it doesn't, we should fix it with these certain ways of resolving it in our own minds. And I'm here today to talk about what if we thought about the ebb and the flow as a natural rhythm? What if we thought about the ebb and flow of sexual energy and romantic energy? And what if we saw that as just like the ocean? That the way the tides ebb and flow is, we don't judge, oh my God, the tide's ebbing. There's something wrong. We got to fix something. We don't think that at all, do we? When the seasons change, oh my God, it's springtime. What happened to winter? We should fix that. We don't think that, do we? No, it would be ridiculous. Why do we then think that way about our romantic sexual love relationships, that they should always be white hot and that everybody should always be wanting sex all the time? Why should we think that? So if we can just take a deep breath and say, you know what? Let's just be open. Let's just be open and go toward this experience with curiosity. And I know that I've talked about that also in other videos and podcasts, but it bears repeating, I would say, in almost every video I do about relationships, that I should be talking about curiosity. Because it doesn't matter whether you're discussing reactivity, or you're discussing deeper intimacy, or you're discussing the best ways to please one another. Curiosity is a huge benefit to all those situations, as it is with this one. So let's approach this reality, this inevitable reality of the ebb and the flow of sexual energy and sexuality and romance in our relationships. Let's approach it with curiosity. And I certainly am not saying that we should just say, oh, it's natural. It's natural, and it doesn't bear any other attention other than that. It's just natural, which is another way a lot of people handle it, is they say, it's just natural. I'm not going to worry about it. And in the meantime, their relationship might be eroding every day. Every step of the way it might be eroding, but they're just pretending that it's natural. And so they're not going to even be curious about why their sexuality or the romantic part of their relationship has shifted. They might say, oh, well, I just had a baby, so it's natural. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to dive into it. So that's not what I'm saying to do, by the way. Just because it is natural and it's inevitable does not mean that you just dismiss it out of hand and say it doesn't bear any other scrutiny It doesn't bear any other attention. It's just natural. I'm going to let it go and pretend like it's nothing. Because where's that going to lead, guys? I know you know this already, but it's going to lead to denial, avoidance, resentment, unresolved issues, unresolved feelings. It's going to lead to a mess. And inevitably, it will lead to separation and distance in the relationship. Doesn't mean that you'll break up, but there will be distance and separation caused whenever we avoid and deny focusing on something that's uncomfortable and just dismissing it and trying to push it under the rug. That leads to problems. So let's dive in and talk about, okay, so what do you do? Well, the first thing is that you explore that with you know, like I said before, you get curious. You explore with your partner. You just say in a very neutral way with a completely open mind, you know, honey, I noticed that we haven't had sex for a few weeks or a few months or whatever it is. You know, I'm just noticing that. And without assuming anything is necessarily wrong, but you also want to be willing to explore if there is something that needs to be addressed. So you just go to your partner and say what you've noticed. And again, this can apply in very many different situations, not just when you notice the ebb of your romantic connection, but it applies here too. So you say, I notice that this is the case, and I just want to talk to you about it. I'm not freaked out about it or upset about it or blaming you or anything at all. I just want to explore it with you so that we stay connected regardless of what's going on in the bed. And so that is a wonderful way to open up a conversation about it, is just to say, I'm noticing this. And how are you feeling about it? And this is how I'm feeling about it. And, you know, if let's say for a moment that you have very different perceptions of it, that you are actually feeling relieved about not having so much sex because it gives you time to focus on your career or raising your kids or getting fit or something, you know, that you've got some other endeavor that really feels like a priority right now. And you're actually kind of feeling relieved about it because you love this person, you're feeling very connected to them. And it's like you just feel an absence of that need right now to connect that way. So what if they respond by saying, I miss it terribly. I'm feeling very insecure about it, or I'm feeling angry that we're not, or whatever it is, you know, whatever is going on that the person is saying, I don't like it. I absolutely don't like it. So, you know, what if that's happening? Well, then you get to talk about that, right? You get to talk about the reality that they may be feeling very differently than you do. And don't assume that that's wrong either. We have to allow for the reality of what is. And it always starts with that. So let's say that they feel hurt or upset or insecure or whatever, and you feel relieved. So then you talk about, you know, is there some way I can reassure you? Because this does not mean that I'm not attracted to you, if that's the truth. If it's the truth that you're not attracted to them anymore, then you get to say that. And then you get to deal with why not? Why aren't you attracted? You know, and I want to say right in the middle of all this, because we're getting really, really deep into it already. And I want to say that at this point, if you realize that you're in an ebb situation and the two of you feel very differently about it, and you've tried approaching that neutrally with a lot of love and a lot of compassion and understanding, and you haven't found a way through it, you might need to come talk to someone like me about that. Because sometimes you're going to get stuck in that stage, and it's not going to allow you then to move into the other steps and tools that will lead you into embracing and enjoying that ebb stage. So if you get stuck in this first exploration of how you feel about what's going on and you can't get through, get help. There's no shame in getting help, and it will help you resolve it so much more quickly. So explore, be curious, have compassion, try to really understand what the other person is feeling. And let's say, you know, in one case you go see a counselor and you get that part resolved. In another case, you're able to, you just feel kind of a natural flow about it and say, yeah, I've noticed that too. I've noticed that too, that neither one of us feels particularly sexual right now. You know, how do you feel about that? Well, I'm okay about it. I know you love me. I know you're attracted to me. I know it'll come back. I know it's just a stage. And the other person says, hey, me too. That's exactly how I feel about it. You know, then you move on. But you get to face the reality of whatever the truth is about the situation. You know, what if you have lost your attraction to that person? You get to face that together. You get to decide, you know, I realize I don't feel attracted to you anymore, but I know I love you deeply. So I wonder what's blocking my attraction to you, you know, and then you get to explore that. And again, these steps are probably going to end up in a counselor's office, but don't avoid that because they can so often be resolved. I can't tell you how many times I go in and out of feeling attracted to my husband, you know, depending on how connected we feel or what's going on in my life or his life or whatever, you know. And if you keep it clean, the relationship, I mean, if you keep the relationship clear of resentments and questions and hidden agendas and all of that, if you keep it clear, that attraction will come back. So, you know, that's one of the tools about this appreciation of the ebb that you can use is if you're in a solid, loving relationship, if you have faith in that love, if you've been through hell together and come out the other side, if you have come and gone with your attraction before, then you're probably going to be a lot more relaxed and be able to have faith in that connection, that it'll return, that this is just a stage. And if you are new and this is your first ebb experience in this relationship, but you feel a real commitment to each other, then you get to have faith in that connection, that your love will see you through this phase into something even deeper, even richer. And that's the main benefit of the ebb stage, guys, is that it's an opening to the possibility of expanding your love, of expanding your definition of sacred connection, of expanding your definition of pleasure and intimacy and closeness and enjoyment together. It's an opening to expand that. You know, if you have a new baby, you know, you may not feel sexual at first, you know, because of the changes in your body and all of that. But you may feel an intimacy together as a new family that you never felt before. So it's an opening, it's an opportunity, it's a portal to a new dimension in your relationship. And if you think of it that way, then you're going to feel very differently about it than if you think it's something wrong. So choose to think of it as a portal to a new dimension of your relationship. And that it's an opportunity to explore other ways to be close. What about, you know, saying, you know, I don't really feel particularly sexual, but I'd love to go hiking. Or what if we try listening to music and learning how to salsa dance? Or what about reading poetry together tonight? I mean, I could go on and on with all the different possible ways. What about cooking dinner together tonight and just chatting while we chop vegetables? What about watching an old movie and snuggling with our toes under the blanket, you know, turning on the fireplace or lighting up the fireplace? There are so many ways of feeling that yummy, wonderful closeness with your partner that don't necessarily end up or involve sexual connection right now. So think of it as an opportunity to expand your creative juices as they apply to your relationship and to opportunities to feel pleasure together. You know, another thing that you can do is, again, see it as a confirmation of how deep and rich your relationship is and your commitment is to each other. That it's like we don't even have to worry about this. We got it. We know we're going to come out the other side. We're going to just see this as a reassurance of how much we love each other. Just think about that the ebb, the lack of sexual connection can be seen as a confirmation of how much you love each other, not something we're usually taught to do. What about the possibility that you get triggered by this situation, either consistently or occasionally during the process, and you get to say, you know what, this is just an opportunity for me to look at myself, for me to notice that my insecurities come up, for me to notice that I feel rejected if my partner doesn't want sex, for me to notice how I feel entitled to it, like he or she ought to be pleasing me. So that's a really wonderful opportunity to notice what gets stirred up in those ebb times and how much more deeply we get to know ourselves as individuals. And I know you know this already also, but it's like the deeper you go as an individual in understanding and self-awareness, the more deeply you can love someone else, and the more deeply you can understand them, the more deeply compassionate you can be for what they're going through, because you have had the courage and the strength and the dedication to going deep inside yourself when you notice yourself being triggered, rather than saying, I'm upset because you don't want to have sex. That's going to go nowhere good. But that is this, again, that's another one of those cycles that we are taught in our society, is to blame the other person. However I'm feeling, blame the other person. And that is just an unbelievable downward spiral. So don't even go there. When you get triggered about an ebb process in your romantic relationship, look at it, welcome it as an opportunity to go inside and look at your own triggers. Very, very powerful work. And what a gift to your partner. What an amazing gift to your partner. So anyway, that's another tool, is to look inward when you know you're getting triggered, and to see it as an opportunity to work on yourself. And you can also each take time to kind of reevaluate the relationship. Reevaluate what you like, reevaluate what works and what doesn't work, reevaluate where you'd like to put more energy and where you'd like to spend less time. It's a wonderful opportunity where there is a lull in that romantic connection to get clear about everything. And why is that an opportunity? Because a lot of times when we get into the cycle of having sex frequently, we're so into that bonding energy that we forget that real love and strong love also takes detachment. It's a process of connect and release, connect and release. And when we are too focused on the sexual romantic connection, there is no release. And we need the release part. Again, it's like the ebb and the flow. And we need to have that individuation, that detachment that allows us to keep evaluating, again, what's working and what isn't working. So see it as an opportunity to take that time to clarify, to get neutral, to observe, to notice. I love that one. And to take another opportunity to focus on the reality that you are the main source of your own love and your own pleasure. So if you're feeling sexual and your partner isn't, you can take this, and even if you're not feeling sexual, you can still take this as an opportunity to explore letting yourself enhance your own ability to be self-loving. And if that includes self-pleasuring, that's great too. But it enhances your strength and your flexibility in life, in that it allows you to stop seeing all of your pleasure as coming from the outside. And it brings back your responsibility for your own pleasure and for your own life and for your own choices. It helps, it gives you an opportunity to bring that back into you. And that is incredibly empowering. It's like I can encourage my partner to take whatever time they need. I don't have to have them paying attention to me and touching me and making me have orgasms or whatever the situation is. I don't have to have that. I know they love me. And this is an opportunity for me to remind myself that that love and pleasure resides in me. I love that. And then when the lull is over, think how much more you have to bring back to them, because it's like you didn't feel deprived during that time. You were enriching yourself and your relationship in so many other ways that when you reconnect in that sexual way, there's none of this frenzied, anxious, desperate kind of energy. I've got to get all I can because I haven't had any. Instead, you feel like, wow, I can even bring more to this experience. I can bring more awareness of my own pleasure, of my own strength, of my own generosity. I can bring more. So that's another benefit of that, owning your own self-love. And during this situation where there's a lull in that romantic connection, you get to open your eyes and look around again in ways that you don't normally do when we're hyper-focused on our partner. We can look around and say, I haven't talked to my best buddy lately. I haven't talked to my mom enough. I haven't spent time with my oldest son. We haven't gone off and done a day together for a while. And it's like it helps you expand your horizons to noticing that there is love in so many forms. I haven't taken a long hike in nature and felt my love in that setting, in that landscape, and the palpable kinetic feeling of that. That's a redundant kinetic feeling, but it's a very powerful experience to just feel that in your cells, that connection to nature. So see it as an opportunity to expand your definition of love and to expand your contacts, reminders that you can feel filled up with all different kinds of love. It doesn't just have to be romantic love. And again, it gets you away from that belief that only that person can make me feel loved. That is so limiting and so it just restricting. It makes me shut down instead of helps me expand. So also you embrace the opening to explore what you really need anyway. So maybe you just think that sex is a need. And I've heard this over and over again, but I need it. It's like, really? No, honestly, actually, you don't. People can live a very fulfilled, happy life and never have sex. It's not actually a need, but it is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I'm not dissing it in any way or saying that we shouldn't enrich it and develop it and experience it. But I'm saying it is such a liberating thing to say, actually, I don't need that the way I need air and food and love and water and self-expression. I don't need that. It's like icing on the cake. If I have it, wonderful. If I don't have it, I'm still perfectly happy in my life. When you can take the opportunity during that ebb period to expand your ability to see that you can be extremely fulfilled and happy, even during those ebb periods, sexually and romantically, then you've got it nailed, guys. Because then you can be happy no matter what. If the other person does lose their attraction to you, you've already gone through periods where you were the source of your own love, and that sustained you through those periods. So you're set. You have everything you need to have a wonderful life, whether you end up staying with this person forever or you end up moving on to someone else and you end up being single for a long time. if you take advantage of those ebb periods and you self-explore and you expand your definition of love and you use it as opportunities to feel your own strength and your own dominion over your own happiness, and you use it as an opportunity to get curious about what the other person's going through and what you're going through, and all the ways that I've talked today about how you can make that into an exciting, expansive, and incredibly rich, deep, satisfying period of your life, then you have true freedom. And then you also have a very expanded definition of what love is, and you can get it so much more easily, whether it's with your partner, yourself, or others. So thank you so much for being with me. Don't forget to share this podcast or video with someone that you know might be going through an ebb period and can really use a pep talk and a deeper understanding of what it means. And I will talk to you next week, and I love you all, and I would love to hear from you. Bye-bye.